Before the Great Darkness, little was known about Durgan Killfist. A rabble-rouser and outlaw pit fighter, his reputation was built upon what little information leaked out of the underhives of Hive Trazior. Stories had him as a rebel leader of an outlaw Goliath gang, more interested in turning the Hive into their own personal fighting arena than doing anything for House Goliath or its allies. In the mayhem that followed the death of Lord Helmore, Durgan emerged from the shadows to tame the cultist uprisings in the bowels of Hive Trazior. With an army of knuckle boys, he turned the tide in confrontations such as the battle for the blistering Waysand, the defence of Boneyard 9. Outcasts flocked to Durgan's banner. Many disenfranchised nobles, guilders, and even other clanners were drawn to the big man's powerful charisma and animal violence. After Trazior, Durgan and his boys headed out into the wastes and came to the aid of Cinderak City during the first Great Ash Waste nomad raids. Here, Durgan made a stand in the Brokebone fighting pits, opening its doors to the wastes and welcoming any challengers to join him on the killing floor. It was during this period of extreme close-quarters violence that Durgan earned the title Champion of the Brokebone, Goliath gangers from all across the wastes praising his strength and fury. However, when the Overtyrant called on Durgan to attack Cinderak City and drive out the Escher, he once again turned his back on his clan, taking his outcasts and heading out into the wilderness. Hello and welcome back to Wellywood Wargaming. My name is Damon and this is the series where I'll be exploring all of the hired guns and dramatis personae in the game of Necromunda. But before I get started with Durgan Killfist, terrible name, please do like, share, subscribe, and of course keep the discussion going down below with any comments, any opinions on these guys, because I'd like to know if you've used them in your games, how impactful they were, whether you like the miniatures, etc. Just all sorts really. Just let's get the conversation started. Now Durgan Killfist, he has 225 credits and he is a Goliath outcast leader as described in the fluff there. Of course you can use this guy as a hired gun too. He is an outlaw though, so he would only be available for outlaw gangs. But using him as an outcast leader is kind of his point. He has a bunch of outcast leader rules here. We've got we'll get our bit, you get what you pay for, and a bunch of other sort of special rules that you get with being an outcast leader, which are pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go into that too much, but yeah, just reiterating that this guy is an outlaw as well. Now I'll get into the stats quickly. He has movement 5, which is faster than your average Goliath, weapon skill 3+, and ballistic skill 3+. He's got a strength of 4, a toughness of 5, 2 wounds, an initiative of 3 up, which is pretty good for a Goliath, and 3 attacks, which is fantastic. The mental stats here are leadership 4+, cool of 4+, willpower of 8+, and an intelligence of 7+ as well. So not the best willpower, but that's pretty typical for a Goliath. Average level of mental dexterity as well, with an intelligence of 7+. Anyway, the skills though, we get inspirational and unstoppable. 2 skills that are okay, I suppose. Unstoppable is quite a good ferocity skill. Inspiration's a leadership skill there, but certainly not world-changing. We haven't got Nerves of Steel. We haven't got True Grit. We haven't got some of the better skills that you'd hope for on a sort of big, tough guy that is mainly close combat focused, unfortunately. And this guy comes with the Kill Fist and the Cruncher, which are 2 not amazing weapons, if I'm honest. They're certainly not paired heavy chain cleavers or anything like that, or serpent's fangs. They're okay, and they look bananas, if I'm honest, on the miniature, but we'll talk about the miniature in a little bit more detail shortly. This guy has frag grenades and furnace plates as well as the last pieces of equipment, so he's got a 5-up save in his front arc, similar to all Goliaths, and frag grenades as well, which are always nice to have as an extra. So the stats for this guy are great. You know, they're very good. They're similar to the last video I did on Jangar Gunfists, similar name as well actually, but I do much prefer Jangar Gunfist. He's much more of a utility sort of guy. Not that I'm comparing these guys at all. This guy is available in the Aranthian Succession Vaults of Temenos book as well, so if you want to go and look up this guy, then he's in there. But let's just talk about this miniature for a second. It is, in my opinion, you might love this, I think this is the worst Forge World Dramatis Personae miniature ever done. It's just far too busy. I don't mind the sculpt on a whole, but it's just got so much going on, and it is just a new level of ridiculous. Like Goliaths are already fairly ridiculous. This guy, however, takes the absolute cake. It is ugly as sin, and you'd have to pay me a lot of money to even own this model. So no, thank you. We have a meat tenderizer for an arm, which just looks highly impractical and just impossible to use. We also have a giant skull on a stick with 4 axe heads sticking out of it, called the Crusher. Or what's it, Crusher or Cruncher? I believe it's Cruncher, which is a terrible name as well. This guy has the worst name out of all of the Dramatis Personae, if you ask me. It's just awful, and the worst miniature out of all of them as well. Now, you could convert this, make it less busy, maybe take both of the arms off and make it into a fairly decent-looking Goliath miniature, but those weapons, I mean, how do you wield a 2-handed, massive cruncher thing when you've got one arm that's inside a meat tenderizer? I've no idea. Sure, this guy's probably very strong, but it just doesn't look right at all to me. A clearly two-handed heavy weapon there isn't going to be used in that one offhand there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too panicky about these things, but I've got to be honest. I just can't stand this miniature. Now, I like the lore. I like the rules for this guy. I can't see him being used very often though, just because his skills aren't really optimal for what he does. He's okay in close combat, but you could make a Goliath leader much better than this guy. There are better options for other Dramatis Personae in the Goliath list as well, so I would say this guy's a bit of a disappointment. As an outcast leader, he's pretty good, because you could give him skills later on down the track which might make him slightly more viable and just better in general. But with only 2 wounds as well, he's not as good as Jengar Gunfist, the one I just did a previous video on. So I would be much more likely to use that guy. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit now, but that's Durgan Killfist, and probably my least favourite of the bunch so far. Please do let me know if I'm completely wrong and you love this guy. You know, everyone has their own opinions. That's absolutely fine. But yeah, gets a big thumbs down for me, this guy, I'm afraid. So yeah, that's that. Anyway, please do like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.